was just over 7 years old. Due to some circumstances, I had a supernatural sensibility that was extremely strong for a period of time during my youth. However, this perceptiveness disappeared as I gradually grew up. My old house was near the mayor's mansion of Kaohsiung City, which is located in southern Taiwan, a 2-story townhouse. After so many years, that place has long since been rebuilt. According to my father, the area around my old house used to be fish ponds much earlier on. Thus, our old house was built after the fish ponds were filled in. Between our old house and the neighboring house, there was a narrow but very long and deep fire lane. The fire lane was very old, and from what I can remember, I've hardly ever seen anyone walk through there. The households on both sides of the fire lane tacitly locked the back doors leading to the fire lane. Once our back door was opened, it led directly to the fire lane. Strangely, my grandmother always stacked a pile of miscellaneous items at the back door. I lived there for 8 years and never once saw her open that door. Out of curiosity, I once asked her,
"Grandma, why is this door never opened?"
But she always avoided saying too much, just telling me, "No reason, just keep your distance." I said,
"Grandma, what's the reason? I want to open and have a look."
Angry, she said, "When I say no, I mean no. Why don't you listen?" Whenever we talked about the back door, my grandma always seemed to be unwilling to say much. For a 7 or 8-year-old child, the areas where adults strictly forbid them from going undeniably appear as mysterious realms with irresistible attraction. I was quite close with the older girl next door at that time, so I ran to ask her out of curiosity, Annie, did you know there's a fire lane behind our house?" Annie said, "I don't know. What about it?" I answered her in surprise.
"Really? Haven't you been there either? Every time I mention wanting to open the back door to take a look, my grandma would scold me fiercely. Why don't we go and explore together? What do you say?"
Annie replied, "Sure." So we chatted along the way. But when we got to the entrance of the fire lane, we found that it was locked as well. Through the gaps, we saw plenty of cats inside. At that moment, my supernatural radar suddenly became active. I felt a chill down my spine, goosebumps spreading all over my body. At that time, I was often disturbed by some strange things. So whenever I sensed something abnormal, I would get extremely scared. At the entrance of the fire lane, I inexplicably began to feel scared and decided to back down. Shivering, I said, Annie, let's go." The neighbor's older sister asked me with a puzzled look. "What's wrong?" I said quietly.
I feel scared. Let's go home. Hurry."
And so, our adventure in the fire lane ended right at the sealed entrance. Sometime later, I encountered a terrifying incident in my room on the first floor. As a child, I was scared to sleep alone, so I'd always go to sleep with my grandma. I slept and studied in that room. My grandma's room was on the ground floor, and there was a frosted glass window facing the firewall. I have a particularly vivid memory of one occasion because it was a day of torrential rain. The rain was heavy, like during a typhoon. It was super scary. Beyond the netted window, there's a welded iron window. On that night, I I was reading with my desk facing the window. As I was reading, suddenly, a large black hand slammed directly onto the frosted glass. The entire hand was plastered on the glass, with the palm lines clearly visible. I was extremely confused. How did this hand manage to reach through the screen and the iron window to touch the glass? I was staring at the hand. It was really large, with a milky white palm and dark edges. It was raining heavily outside, and since the windows were closed, I couldn't see outside. However, my sixth sense told me that it belonged to a girl. At that moment, I just kept staring at the hand. Initially, it was only pressed against the glass, motionless. Suddenly, it began to hit the glass. Bang, 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 bang. The entire window vibrated from the pounding, as if it would shatter the next second. I was terrified and erupted in tears, for I knew it wasn't human. Sobbing uncontrollably, I ran to find my grandma and cried out, "Grandma, there's something outside my window." My grandma responded calmly, "What thing? Children shouldn't talk nonsense." Seeing that she didn't believe me, I kept trying to convince her. "It's true, Grandma. There's a hand outside my window." But no matter how much I tried, Grandma didn't believe me. She only told me to stop talking nonsense, scolded me, and told me to return to my room. When I got back to my room, the hand had disappeared. There were no traces of being hit on either the glass or the screen. I was terrified that night, but thankfully, the hand never returned. From that incident, I realized that if the frequency matches, spiritual entities can actually materialize and potentially harm people. But if it wasn't a ghost, think about it. A woman in the midst of a stormy night, standing inside a sealed fire lane, frantically pounding on a window. That's quite a surreal scene as well. If you want to see my videos faster, please like and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon to get new video updates.